So the good news is publishing is really just about book formatting and book design. Once you have your book formatted, the interior formatted for print, and you have a full print cover PDF file that's ready, all you really need to do to publish is upload your files. I recommend KDP and Amazon because it's the largest book publisher and it's a little easier to use. People have a lot of questions, for example, about KDP's 3-month exclusivity offer that really only affects ebooks. If you want to sign up for the 3-month exclusivity, it only applies to the ebooks anyway, not the paperbacks. You can set up your paperback for expanded distribution. Someone asked me recently, why is my book showing up in Barnes & Noble when I only ever put it on KDP? It's because KDP's expanded distribution for print books, for paperbacks, actually does go and reach a lot of other online stores. I think also the quality and the cost will be very reasonable with KDP. People say that Ingram Spark's quality is better. I've tested both extensively. It's not reliable because it depends on where they're printing. I've seen it go both ways, where the quality is much better on KDP or it's much better on Ingram Spark. And when we talk about quality, it's not, unless you're holding the two books side by side, it's not really something that readers are going to notice anyway. Also, I just think Ingram Spark is a little bit harder to use. They're kind of a pain in the ass about accepting all of your files and all the little details. Often it'll get really technical and they'll ask you to change your RGB to CMYK or something. And unless you're using Photoshop, it can be difficult to really satisfy their requirements. If you decide that you don't want to go with KU, Kindle Unlimited's 3-month exclusivity, you could use Draft to Digital or Smashwords to publish the book out in more places. And I also recommend, if you are trying to get early reviews, to set up, you're basically going to need to set up a landing page that has your book's digital files, a PDF or the ebook, so that people can sign up for your book in exchange to get a free ARC copy and hopefully publish a review when you launch. So for those, I think it's easier to set up with a platform like InstaFreebie or BookFunnel, which are both platforms that allow you to give out ARC copies. I do have tons of information in all of my free books. I have a book called Write and Publish a Book on a Budget. I have one that's book marketing is dead because a lot of people are using kind of old-fashioned spammy tactics. Often authors say things like they don't care about the income, they're not doing this to make a profit, they don't care if they don't get any readers. But then, of course, once you've invested all the time in publishing your book, you're going to want people to read it. So what I see a lot of authors do is their book doesn't convert at all. Nobody will buy it, nobody will read it because it's not attractive, because it doesn't communicate the genre or the topic or the benefits well. And then the authors get desperate and they do a lot of spammy stuff or, too much promotion. So book marketing is dead is about how not to do that stuff. And then guerrilla publishing, which is a little bit updated, is more about how to publish right the first time. What most people consider as book marketing, which I'm going to go into more in the next video about book marketing. But the main point is that almost all quote unquote book marketing happens during the publishing process. Your book marketing is choosing the right keywords and categories. It's the cover to a huge extent. It's researching your audience and market and comparative titles. Marketing is just figuring out who your audience is and how to reach them and communicate the value of your book to them for less money than you earn. So whether you're using content marketing or blogging or guest posting or advertising, you need to convert well enough that if you spend $100 on marketing, you earn back 150 or 200 in book sales. Otherwise, your book marketing is going to be crippled kind of from the get-go. If your conversion isn't good enough and you can't market your book for less than you spend, you're never going to be able to sell more books. So one tool that I really like for research is called Publisher Rocket. I'll leave a link down below. This is by Dave Chesson. You can do without it if you just spend a lot of time on Amazon going through all the bestseller lists and really figuring out who is your audience, what do they like, what don't they like. It's just a lot faster and easier with a tool like this that'll allow you to do keyword searches and competition analyzer, category search, and even they have a tool for AMS keyword search. AMS is Amazon's advertising platform, which you can only access if you self-publish and put your files directly on KDP anyway. It is probably the most effective way of reaching readers and selling books. Once you've done your research, then I'll go back to this KDP page where you would be putting in your title, the subtitle. This is where it's really important to use keywords. You don't really want to keyword stuff, but it's also really important to be very clear about what your book is and who it's for. I see a lot of books where I can't tell, is this a romance or historical fantasy or memoir or whatever. If there's any confusion, readers won't buy the book if they don't know what the book is about. And they won't even read the blurb. You might think, well, my cover is cool and interesting, so they'll click to find out what the book is about. That's not true. That will never happen. People will click on the covers that are attractive and look like the books that they want to read. They already have to know the genre before they click. If it's something that looks like they don't know what this book is, they don't know what it's about, they're not even going to click on the thumbnail or take the time to figure out, to read the blurb and figure out whether or not this is a book they want to buy. So the covers and the keywords are really important. Down here, there's a field for description. This is a little bit weird because, as you can see in KDP, they use HTML code. So I have stuff here like the italics or the heading 1 tag. So if you don't know how to code in HTML, there are tools, online tools that'll help you to format this stuff. You could even do it in a blog post like on WordPress.com if you have a WordPress site. So you could write it the way you want and then toggle to the code view and then just copy and paste it in here. You can also use, Amazon has another platform that's Amazon Author Central where you can claim your books and then edit the description and stuff. The tool for writing descriptions on Author Central is a little bit easier to use without code, so you can try that as well. So then down here, it's going to ask you for keywords and categories, and this can be tricky if you don't do proper research. It only allows you to choose 2 categories, but actually if you email KDP support, they can add you to up to 10 different categories. So to get much more visibility, it's important to request more categories to be put into, but you really have to do your research to figure out which categories are the right fit for your book. Technically, these 7 keywords, there's a list on Amazon about all of the different categories. And the point of these keywords is actually to get you into some of those hidden categories. But since you can just request directly which categories you want to be put in, I would rather just use these for keywords that I think people are looking for. And this is just a place where you don't really want to just make something up and guess, because this could make a really big difference in visibility, which is why it's important to use a tool like KDP Publisher, or even just do a lot of heavy research on Amazon to figure out what your audience actually wants, what they're actually looking for, to know the difference between search results for how many people are searching for this genre versus that genre or keyword or whatever. So I'd spend a little bit of time trying to make sure you get these right, but you can also play around and test and just see if it helps with visibility. I haven't really talked about editing yet, and I have a lot of resources on writing and editing, so I want to talk a little bit about those. I actually don't necessarily recommend you get an editor for every book. If you're just looking for typos and proofreading, I think you can use a tool like Grammarly or ProWritingAid. I've tested both. I think Grammarly finds more actual typos, but ProWritingAid can help with some more advanced stylistic stuff. Neither of them will solve core critical issues with your book, but a lot of editors actually won't either. An editor can help you to flag problems, ask questions, and clean up the writing and make it a lot better, but they can't significantly make big changes to your book. And often the long-term success of a book's project is going to be the content. Even if you get everything else right, your cover and your formatting is all beautiful, you've chosen the right categories and keywords, even if you can sell the book, but they get into it and they quit reading after a few pages, or they get to the middle and they give up, there's a lot of reasons a reader may not actually finish reading your book. So after I finished my PhD in literature, I've spent, 5 or 10 years writing fiction and nonfiction, and just in the last couple of years, I've really been focusing on advanced craft methodology stuff, because I don't think there's enough support and resources for authors about how to actually write a good book. A lot of authors make the same writing and editing mistakes, so it's actually pretty easy to get some kind of a checklist and just go through and tighten things up, whether for fiction or nonfiction. For nonfiction, especially getting the introduction, the preface, the first chapter right, because that's all most people are going to read, and you really have to hook them early. And for fiction, often it's a problem of pacing or conflict or suspense or intrigue. So I do have a ton of videos on YouTube about writing and especially plotting. I have a plot dot, which is a free book on kind of the 9-point plot structure I use, and I also made a more advanced, I think, 26 chapter outline. Those are really cool resources. I'm putting them up into a book, I think called the Bestseller Blueprint or something like that. And I also have a supplementary course tentatively called the Bestseller Blueprint that I think I will add into the package, so that if you want to upgrade for these advanced book design and book formatting templates, you will also get this course about the best-selling blueprint, which really just has a whole bunch of checklists and red flags and stuff so that you can go through even before you publish and just make sure you fix any potential issues. If you need more help and decide that you do want a developmental editor, I have trained some editors on this side, the Book Butchers, which I started when I was doing my PhD in literature. I'm not actually editing anymore. I'm writing my own books, but I have added a few cheaper services if you just need some quick feedback. So under here, am I ready to publish? I have a first chapter critique where I will just go through your first chapter and do a really heavy critique on what's wrong with it, how you can improve it, your writing problems. I also have under here literary services, some stuff like I will do your keyword research and category research. I will figure out your blurb and your, like, how do you communicate the benefits and the value, who is your audience, that kind of stuff. What most people think of, though, when they talk about publishing is like, when should they reach out to book reviewers or influencers, or should they get a publicist? How do they get the word out? All of that kind of stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, most of that doesn't matter, because what's really going to matter the most is your conversion, which is your cover. Does your cover attract and convert your target audience at a reasonable rate so that you can afford to pay to reach other people? So in the next and final video, I'm going to go a little deeper into book launching and list building, getting more reviews, hitting #1, setting up your author platform, and then probably advertising to keep your books selling long term.